Welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage. Today we're continuing on the 72 Nova LS Turbo project. It's all about assembling the drive shaft we built in yesterday's video and building a front drive shaft safety loop. Once again, digging deep into the sea of potential under my bench. Scrap. Building stuff I need out of total junk. Assembling the first U-joint, I put the cross up through the hole, installed the cap, and I tapped it all the way down through so I'm flush at the end. This is the secret to not losing the needle bearings. Right now I could leave it sitting like there and it won't go anywhere, but now I flip it over. I can pull it up a little bit. I should have added that I greased every one of them. With my finger I actually pushed it into the needle bearing so they're extra stiff. I can pull this up a little bit. Now there's no way, see how it's sticking up? Then I can actually miss. And I can just tap it together. It's going to start rocking the camera, so I'll probably shut it off. So now we're pretty well tight, so I can put my snap ring here, and then I can just move the whole thing together so it's against the snap ring. And then put this snap ring in. And then when I'm done, it's very important to set each corner in the vise supported here and tap gently with a rubber hammer here to set the snap ring against the cap and makes this free. Right now it's just tight. When I'm done, it'll be free. Just a few tips. And I start with the yoke, and then I'll put the yoke into the drive shaft, and then I'll do the open end last, because otherwise it'd just be flopping around on half of it, and I'd probably either damage the cross or lose the caps. So I do the rear U-joint last. Okay, I've done everything I said I was going to do. You can see the snap ring actually rises up in the middle because it's caught there and it's been pushed on a little bit. Nice and free. Now I can take my yoke, again, up through the drive shaft yoke, hold it all the way up in, put my cap on, and I'm going to tap it all down together, holding up pressure in. So this is always inside the cap as I slide it down through the yoke. Go way too far, flip it over, repeat. This strange yoke is actually made for a roller tail housing, but dimensionally it's the same, and I'm going to run it in the bushing. I don't think anything bad's going to happen because it's harder than normal. That's why they make it. That's why it's an N. It's a very expensive yoke, and it's very precision. So precision that it's really difficult to assemble because everything is as tight as possibly can be. So maybe someday it'll break in. Funny story. This came out of a top sportsman Buick Regal that I used to race against. And years later, it's going in my car. I used to love the car, and now I have the yoke out of it. All assembled. Once again, I set the jaws of the vise here and tap gently on the yoke with a rubber hammer. You can see the center is pushed up, so you know it's locked around the outside. It's forced right against it, and it's nice and loose. Plenty of room for my U-joint. Excuse my grease fitting, I mean. I love those tiny welds. Now is a terrible time to realize you didn't pay attention in math and industrial arts and you messed up reading the tape measure. But let's go see if it fits in the car. Fortunately, I paid attention in class and things are okay. Now it's a good indication how well your drive shaft will stay in the car as to how difficult it is to install it. I haven't put the loops on it yet. And you already got to go up over this cross member, up over the rear end, and then back down toward the transmission. So my front one is going to be about here. So I don't think that's going to be a problem installing the shaft. I thought about making it removable, but it's still going to be 360 around the shaft, so you'd have to install it over the shaft. And I'll go ahead and run a cross member side to side, and if it becomes an issue, I will saw it off and put flanges on it. Back here by the forelink, the top of the forelink never should have been left unsupported. So I'm going to run a tube cross member between the frame rails. And I'll run the uprights next to the drive shaft, approximately the height of the opening in the floor. And that should accomplish a couple things. Supporting the forelink and another drive shaft loop. As I study this car, all I can think of is whoever built it thought that the rear frame rails that go up over the rear end needed to line up with the frame, the front frame, the frame connector, and they discontinued the rail up over, which I guess is technically stronger, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with moving the rails in a little bit. That's how it's typically done. But this is a 315 radial, and I still have a little bit of room on either side. Sorry about the light. This is as big a tire as I want to run. Anyway, so it'd be about a 10.5-inch slick. I've been rethinking the drive shaft loop on the front. I don't like the idea of a cross member going all the way across frame rail to frame rail and potentially being in the way of my exhaust system or whatever I end up doing there. It's just extra weight and a cumbersome addition I don't want. The poly rear transmission mount has that 1/8-inch plate above it that closes off the mount. I'm thinking, for starters, this is a like 2nd-gen Camaro bracket that goes under the mount in a stock application. It's going to get me out of ways. I'm going to bolt that on and see what I can do with that to start with. I like that this is a sturdy yet lightweight piece. It needs to be extended and widened a little bit for the mount. And maybe head at a downward angle. I'm going to continue to fab and engineer as I go. Still kind of warm, but that should get me back past the transmission. I had to give it a slightest bit of angle. A little bit of reinforcement. Remove the rust. Now bolt it in there and see what I can do for a loop. And just for kicks, while I was sitting here, 378154 comes up as a 75 to 78 Camaro and Firebird exhaust or cat converter mount. I think the cat was over here behind the transmission. This must have been the mount for it. I know I saved it because it looked handy a long time ago. All right, that looks good. It clears the cross member and the drive shaft. I'm going to punch 4 holes in this piece of 2-inch flat bar. I'm going to cut this drive shaft loop up and set her on top. And she'll be removable, sturdy, and that'll do the trick. Let me get after it. I think that's going to work just fine. So I got some body work and paint to do, but I like it better than having a cross member all the way across that was welded in place. This is twice removable. I can remove the hoop, or I can remove it from the transmission. And I could do chin-ups on it if I had to. She's plenty rugged. The rear, I decided I'm going to mark where the center of the drive shaft is, and then do it when I remove the rear end, so I can get right up in there to weld. I got to pull the rear end down. First, before I pull the rear end, I'm going to put the wheelie bar brackets. I have a set of wheelie bars. I'm not sure if I'm going to run them, if ever, but now's the time to weld the brackets on. And then I'm going to take it out and reinforce it like I said a couple times already. Reinforce the brackets, reinforce the shock mount, and bore a hole, run that past all the way to the housing. Also give me a nice place to tie it down on the trailer. I think it'll be all right. So as usual, things changed along the way. I'm not sure I had a solid plan in any of them. I didn't really fall in love with that cross member running side to side because I want to run dual exhaust and maybe even make a boom tube NASCAR type exhaust out in front of the wheel. You know, see when you do a long smoky burnouts, it blows the smoke out. Not stationary burnouts, long smoky burnouts. Get it right. At this point, I might as well pull the rear end out and do all the welding back there and finish the drivetrain of the car. Then I can work under the hood, doing the turbo side and the fuel system and all that stuff. totally putting the cart before the horse because the car isn't painted or anything, but I'm going to just kind of wing it as I go. I have enough spray cans if I have to. There's no rush. I got rolling on it, kind of on a lark. I should be finishing the 71, but I was getting tired of working on that. I needed to buy more parts that I didn't have money for. I had all kinds of parts laying around for this one. And as I'm thinking of it, I can probably go further on the 72 than the 71. The 71's coming along pretty good. As I mentioned in a couple of other videos, like today I got the door open for the first time since last fall. There's lots of outside projects, the 47 International. I got to get a rear end under that so at least it rolls again. And that actually runs and drives somewhat. I mean, I drove it outside. And yeah, there's lots of other things. The 47 Ford pickup, the 49 Chevy pickup, my wife's Pontiac, 39 Pontiac, another Model A. I'd like to think by fall, I'd like to at least get them in, maybe body sitting on chassis, so I'm not saying they take up less space, but they take up less space in here. I'll just put them on, half of them don't need to be pretty, so if they live under a tarp, they're only going to get more beautiful. Like, share, subscribe. Thanks for watching. Typically when I end these videos, I think about 4 more things I wanted to say, but I'll catch you next time.